Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Idle Park Talk Show. We are definitely glad to have you guys watching this lovely evening. If you're here in Calgary, but I'm sure evening has been lovely everywhere else. We are going to be talking a little bit about the encounter, if you don't mind me using the word encounter, the encounter between uh, Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, and our very good friend, President of the United States, Donald Trump. These two gentlemen met in the White House, in the Oval Office on May 5th. That was Monday, so about 2 days ago. Just barely about a week after Mark Carney was confirmed Prime Minister of Canada. His confirmation happened on April the 29th. So we have a new prime minister. He's been in office for less than a week, or maybe about a week. And his visit to the White House was his first visit to head of state. And again, who else than our closest neighbor, our closest ally, our biggest trade partner. And these days, some people might say, foe, enemy, depending on who you talk to. I have staunch Canadians who do not consider America a friend anymore, right? They do not consider Donald Trump's America a friend to Canada anymore. So we are going to be kind of doing a critique or an analysis of that meeting. Particularly, we are going to be dealing with their conversation with the press, the question and answers, and how they reacted to that. So that is what we are going to be dealing with. But before we go on, Ghana, what were your observations, comments about this visit and the meeting in question?
Hi everyone, thanks for joining again. I thought it was a good encounter. Both parties showed restraint. There was a little bit of trolling from Trump in typical Trump fashion. Mark Carney too. You could tell he was looking for his moment to reiterate his campaign message. But I thought they were respectful. They were lovely. It was almost a bromance, something that most did not expect. But it was nice to see, and friendly adults having a good conversation. Although other things were happening, it's like that wasn't the main thing. There were other things. They're talking about the Houthis. They were talking about potential deals that they can be announcing. So, Canadian Prime Minister meeting Donald Trump for me wasn't the main headline. I mean, it was there, but it's like there were other things that shrouded that moment, and it was not just talks about Canada-US relationship.
Okay. So I want us to start with this short clip. This was a clip of Mark Carney during the campaign, and he made a few comments about Donald Trump and his counterpart, Pierre Poilievre. So let's watch.
Inspiration from President Trump, like Pierre Poilievre, will kneel down. His inspiration from President Trump, like Pierre Poilievre, will kneel down.
Comments. What do you think?
Well, because he was like attacking Pierre Poilievre, and Pierre Poilievre was doing the same thing from Mark Carney. If we all remember, Trump kind of endorsed, not officially, but he kind of endorsed the Liberal candidate in a strange move. But many thought that Trump was a key player in these Canadian elections, and he swayed a lot of Canadians to vote for the Liberals, willingly or unwillingly. And during the campaign, Carney had a lot of strong words for Trump. And he had a lot of strong words for Poilievre too, because Poilievre and Trump, like we said before, have very similar stance on almost everything. That clip is just a little bit of what Carney said about Poilievre, but he said horrible things about Trump. Canada is not going to follow Trump. The relationship with the USA is over as we know it. We need someone who's going to stand up to Trump. Um, I spent, I watched the whole thing. I did not see someone who was I mean, he stood up in a way, but not the way he sounded on the campaign trail.
Hmm.
He was more shifted tone. It was like, oh, we can work together. We can find areas to work together and
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Hmm.
But then he wasn't the Carney that was on the campaign trail. This was a
Right.
different version of Carney,
Right.
in my opinion. So,
Of
what's
course,
your
and
thoughts?
I think that when candidates go out to campaign, there's it's a different
It's a different
ball
ball
game.
game.
They
Yeah,
they are just leaders of their parties. They are not
right.
officially head of the Canadian government, right? So
Hmm.
they can really speak freely. They don't have to be diplomatic. That's why, of course, Kanye could say whatever he wanted to say about Trump,
Right.
right? But
And
now,
Polyev did too. Yeah,
and Polyev did too. But wait, now he is prime minister. He's head of the government of Canada.
right.
He has to be diplomatic. He can't just
He was very,
he
yeah,
can't just go out and speak out of term,
yeah.
without really thinking about consequences. And again, I mean, you're talking to Donald Trump, who's very sensitive,
Who does the same to?
who is very sensitive, first of all, right, to
Yeah,
to how people speak about him. I remember him, saying, Pierre Poilievre is no friend of mine, right? Again, why was that? Just
stupidly.
because, again,
Yeah.
stupidly no friend of mine. So I think now that he's prime minister, I think his approach, his attitude towards our friend and neighbor in the United States, I think it makes sense for him to be
Diplomat.
different. What do you think his strategy was going to the US
Right,
and having this conversation with Trump? What again,
right.
when we think about you know uh, um um missteps in the
Hmm.
Oval Office, the first thing that comes to mind is Zelensky. I think he
Right.
is one of the leaders who have had the biggest misstep in the
Yeah,
White House of all
yeah.
times. Now I'll speak like Donald
All
Trump.
times, yeah.
The worst of all times. His debacle with Trump was captured in public, and I think if I were Kanye going down to the US, I would have a plan as to
Yeah.
how I want to talk to Trump. What do you think his strategy was, in your own opinion? I have
Yeah,
a few
and
questions.
I
I'll
think
let you
Kanye
talk.
watched that. I think Kanye watched the interaction between Trump and Zelensky. So he sounded more cautious, more diplomatic.
Right,
He was going to start by praising Trump. It was like a strategy. I'm going
right.
to praise you. You're president of the foreign country. You're president of
Mm-hmm,
America. You want to take of the
mm-hmm,
American people.
mm-hmm,
But on the same time, too, I have been elected in
mm-hmm,
this same avenue to take care of the
mm-hmm.
Canadian people. So there was an aspect there of stoking a little bit of Trump's ego, so you get
Right.
Trump on your good side,
Right. Good
and
sides. Yeah.
then you can um, hit a heavy blow. But I didn't see him hit a heavy blow. I always knew that he was going to find at some point to repeat the main thing of his campaign message. Canada
Mm-hmm.
is not for sale. He was looking for the opportunity to say that. That was always at the plan of his mind. And
Yeah.
even if it and the journalists too, they are also trying to like get headlines. So I'm sure they were supposed to ask that question so that he can reiterate
Mm-hmm.
in front of the president himself, so he can go back to Canada and say, "You see what I stood in front. I told him Canada is not for sale."
Yeah.
Um, um, that's my honest opinion. I think he was very calculated. He was going to
He,
praise
he
Trump.
had he definitely had to be. And in terms of strategy, you're right. I agree with what you have said. I'm sure he did prepare. He
Right.
did prepare for this encounter. I'm sure he watched, like you said, he probably watched
He probably was.
Zelensky, and so that he could learn a little bit what to do. And then another thing which he did was using language that Trump could understand, language that he could relate with.
Yeah.
Like he had a few real estate comments, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which kind of it softens you up a little bit when
That's
somebody's
something.
speaking in terms that you associate to yourself, right? Talk about deals and just using Donald Trump's words
Right.
in ways that he could take it, right? And then again, you were straight to the point. Compliment Trump. A man like
He was
Donald
going.
Trump wants to be complimented at every
Yep.
turn. You can say one bad thing and then shoot in a few compliments and then say
If you
he
comment.
might
Yeah.
overlook some of those comments, right? If you're constantly complimenting him, he's ahead of
All right.
just like you said. But the one thing that I think he was wise was picking his battles wisely. Donald Trump is very he speaks in a language that could be exaggerated. He overemphasizes things that may not be there. Some people
Right.
might say he lies, and yes, he might throw in a few lies here and there.
Right.
If you're wise like McCartney did, I'm not going to fight you over the trivialities,
Right.
the little things. It might be true, it might be lies, you might have exaggerated it. I'm not going to fight you there. I am definitely going to tell you that Canada is not for sale when I get the chance. But again, the rest.
Did you feel that Carney had to make that statement? He had to, at some point, whether the journalist brought up or not, he had to be on record that he said Canada is not for sale. I mean,
But
that was part of
Trump was saying all over the place how Canada could be the 51st state and how
right,
Canada
right.
was real estate. It was a good. So he was bound to make that comment.
He was bound to make it.
That was the only way he could say it without antagonizing Trump, without looking like combative or coming across as disrespectful, right? So I felt like he did handle that really well. And again, just it kind of connects to the next video that I kind of want us to watch. It is Carney's kind of introduction to that conversation, right? And again, you could identify some of the strategies that we mentioned while he was giving his opening comments. Let's watch.
I'm on the edge of my seat, actually, for the big announcement. But thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker, securing your borders, ending the scourge of fentanyl and other opioids, and securing the world. And I've been elected with my colleagues here, with the help of my colleagues here. I'm going to spread the credit to transform Canada. With a similar focus on the economy, securing our borders, again on fentanyl, much greater focus on defense and security, securing the Arctic and developing the Arctic. And the history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together. And I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you.
You see what he did there?
Yep.
Lots of compliments. Great president, fighting for your people, this and that, dealing with fentanyl, securing the border, transformative president. What do you think Trump feels when he hears that from someone?
I mean, Trump forgets everything that was said on the campaign trail, that's for sure. Because Trump is someone who likes to be praised, he likes his ego stroke, he likes to be told the things that he wants to hear. And Carney played that very well. Carney started by that, considering what he has said on the campaign trail. So, in my opinion, Carney, he was very technical, very diplomatic. New Trump probably has been advised by a lot of people who have visited Trump, and he's seen videos, of course. So he was very diplomatic about it, and you can tell Trump was very receptive, even though Trump doesn't agree with him on a lot of things. But he was very receptive of the compliment, and was willing to. Hopefully, it sets the stage for a good negotiation between the U.S. and Canada. Because I think these meetings happen, then the people go down and sit in the background and hash out their differences, and then trying to come out with deals that works for their respective countries. So this was just introduction. You see, I think we have videos to play. That would say Trump, in my opinion, Trump did bend, but he did not bend as much as Carney did. Because of he's still maintaining his comments about the 51st state, and we have videos to show that. We'll discuss that when we get to that point.
Yeah. So I think Carney did well to just in that introduction. I think
he did well.
It kept Trump at bay, right? Trump did not appear quite relaxed after those comments,
right?
Which to me kind of went a long way. But again, it wasn't long after that before Trump went back to some of his rhetorics and his comments about Canada.
Exactly.
He talked a little bit about calling Justin Trudeau governor, and then I'm talking about Canada being the 51st state. What is it about the 51st state thing that has to come up? I thought that was done and dealt with a couple of weeks back. Why do we keep going back to the 50? And we all know it's something that's not happening. It will not happen. But why do we keep going back to it? In your opinion, what is it about the 51st state that we always have to go back to it?
I think Trump is businessman. He's a negotiator. He strikes deals for a living. I think he's basically still putting Canada under pressure because he wants to strike a deal and he wants to come on top as being the one at the forefront and having all the cards to strike that deal. So I think deep down, Trump knows very well that this is not possible. It can never happen. But he has to say it to pressurize Canada. I mean, look at what he did for the election. If you ask me, this last election was a one-issue vote. They just wanted someone to stand up for Trump.
It was the 51st state and Trump. That was
that was the main thing that was in ballot. Forget about the economy, forget about the inflation, forget about the housing prices, forget about the fentanyl crisis in Canada, forget about illegal immigration. Canadians did not care about that. Canadians wanted only someone who could stand up to Trump and stand up for Canada. Okay, and I think Trump knows that. If I'm very generous, I think he has an idea that that's what Canadians want. But I also think that he knew that his statement did sway the elections. He said it in some parts of
he made it very clear. He wasn't shy to say it. And he being diplomatic about it, saying, I might have been the reason why you won. That was exactly what he said.
He said, so I don't know if he really cares if Poilievre won or Carney won. He has an agenda for Canada he wants to implement. He wants to bring businesses back to the US. He doesn't care about Canada. So he thinks he has all the cards to make these moves without even consulting Canada and stuff like that. Unfortunately, that's how Canadians took it. That's how they voted. Many voted Liberals because they thought Carney was more of a tough person to stand up to Trump than Poilievre was. To bring it back to your question, I think Trump is still putting pressure on Canada because he wants everything. He wants Canada to pay its fair share, to come down to similar level or at least parity on the tariffs, because according to Trump, Canada is reaping USA in trade deals right now. The USA is having deficits, where Canada has surpluses. The USA is taking care of Canadian military, providing protection to Canada and stuff like that. So he's still putting pressure. I don't think this visit changed much. Maybe they'll sit back and have stuff, but I think Trump is still trying to hammer a deal that will favor the US.
Okay, let's listen to what Trump had to say about the 51st state. And again, this was not an initial comment. This was a response to a question that was posed by one of the journalists.
Right.
Advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada. But we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places.
I mean, you could see Carney wanting to he was able to hold himself back.
He was able to allow a lot of restraint.
Speaking, right, a lot of restraint because you could really see the frustration in his face, right, and even just in his mannerism, you could see that he wasn't quite pleased with that comment. But hey, what did he do? had to wait.
He showed a lot of restraint.
A lot of restraint, yes.
A lot of restraint, which was applaudable, and he was eager to respond. But then you don't cut Trump,
No, you
and
don't.
Trump
You
was
can't
going
let it
on and
go.
on and on and on and on and on. But then when he had the chance, you knew that's when he was going to strike that Canada thing.
Right.
So I just knew it that he was going to say that,
Hmm.
and the opportunity presented itself. Um, and of course, he said what he was supposed to say.
And
What was more, yeah, sorry.
you notice that he didn't say, "Well, you are not protecting us. We have an army.
He
We
did
can
not say
protect
that.
ourselves."
Yeah,
Or you remember how Zelensky came across us, right? As
yeah.
if, well, you're not doing really, you really are not doing much because we can take care of ourselves. I think that
Mhm.
was something Trump didn't like about that conversation. And for an ordinary diplomat, you would think that that would be something that Kanye
That was
would
what we
say.
said. Yeah,
But
yeah.
again, he has probably prepped for this
Yeah,
conversation,
I don't
and
know.
it
Why do you
was.
think? Why do you think he did not have a pushback? Is it really because U.S. is protecting Canada, and
I
Canada
mean,
is
there's some
losing a
truth.
lot?
I think
There's a
there's
lot of truth
definitely
to
some
this. Yeah,
truth in what Trump says. Trump generally doesn't
saying
create.
without
He doesn't. There's always, like they say, there's usually no smoke without fire.
right,
There's always a piece. There's always an amber, and then he blows it out and makes it big. For
right,
sure, I can say it for sure that
right. There is a lot of U.S.
countries don't
protection
mess
of
with
Canada.
Canada not because they feel like Canada is a superior power, but just because they know that the United States would back Canada up, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
has been backing Canada up. That's for me. That is the only reason why Canada has is at a level in terms of world power.
Right.
Canada is
Because
only at the level where it is thanks to the United
because of
States,
U.S. That's true.
thanks to the US. And even though it doesn't sound too good, somebody might not like us saying this, but it's a fact.
It is what it
It
is.
is clearly a fact.
You know
How
what?
many, how many we are 30, 35, 36 million, 36
Yeah,
million people?
36 million.
We are a
Yeah, that's
small
like
nation.
1/10. That's like
We
one
are a
tenth of the
small
U.S.
nation.
population.
The size of our economy is 1/10 the size of the economy of the United States. We are a
Right.
small nation, 100%, right?
Yeah.
So when Trump says it might be beneficial for Canada to be part of the US, yes, lower taxes,
And lower taxes.
no
Yeah.
tariffs, access to. There is some
Bigger
truth.
market. Yeah.
There is some truth in that.
There's a lot of truth in that because
Just
just
putting it out
look at the
there.
campaign.
Mhm.
Just look at the campaign trail. I mean, they call Trump arrogant, they call him stupid, they call him names, but nobody really called him a liar
No,
when it comes to the fact that
no.
Canada is being protected a lot by the US. The US is losing a lot of money in Canada. Nobody really said that. I mean, some people said, but the numbers did not add up. Okay, so
Canada is taking care of us in one way or the other. Our currency is I mean,
it's like
comparable, right?
one
So,
US dollar is like almost 1.4 Canadian.
yeah,
So that tells you a lot.
so
And
there's definitely truth in
there's
in his
definitely a lot of truth.
Mhm.
And you could tell he was really hesitant. A lot of restraint, like we said, a lot
Yes,
of calculated moves. He still calculated. He did
right,
not just say, "Oh, Canada is not for sale." He went
right.
through the route again that you pointed out. As a real estate
Mhm.
developer, was sitting in White House and the Buckingham Palace. Some things are not
Yeah,
for sale. But what was more interesting to me was Trump's response to that. Never say never. Never.
yeah,
So Trump is still pushing Canada. He's still
yeah.
pressing the buttons,
I mean, he
pressing
can't let
laws.
you win. He can't. I mean, he knows how to take it, how to take a punch, like people say.
Right. I
He
know.
took
He
it pretty
knows.
well.
Yeah, he knows.
Trump took it
And
pretty well.
you're talking with someone who has been in the media his whole life. Go
Mhm.
and look at
He-
videos of Trump in the
right,
1970s. He
right,
has been an entertainer. He knows what captures the media. He knows
right.
what sells to the television. He knows how to sell something.
Yeah.
Okay, so and
Let's
then you can compare with Carney. Yeah,
let's listen to um, Prime Minister Carney's response to the 51st state.
51st, yeah,
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together. And we have done.
So you see how Carney put it.
right.
It's not for sale. ever, never
Not
going
to
to
say
be for
ever,
sale.
never
However,
gonna say.
we can work together. We can form a partnership,
Right.
a good relationship as neighbors, and and do well for citizens of
On both countries,
both
yeah.
nations. I don't think that's something that you think of off the cuff. That
Yeah.
is definitely something that you've thought about prior to
You
that
thought
meeting.
about prior to
If
that
he
meeting.
brings this up, if he brings up the 51st state, how do I respond?
How do I respond? And there was no way Kanye was going to the White House without thinking about a response to that question. He had that
Yeah.
pre-prepared. He had that at the back of his pocket. So he
Mhm.
already knew how he was going to say it. He already knew how he was going to cajole Trump so that he's calm and receptive to what was going to be said.
Right.
Yeah. So he said it nicely. I think he studied Trump. He's very diplomatic, a complete change from his campaign tone, and more diplomatic and more friendly in his approach to Trump, and so that the blows don't land as hard as it did as he promised they would when it's going. So I was really happy. He showed a lot of restraint, a lot of maturity, and some respect for the White House and the President of the United States too. No, that was good.
Yeah.
Do you think
Another,
it's called political points among Canadians or no, with his appearance in the
if
White
you
House?
talk to a lot, I think a lot of Canadians were happy with that
Right,
response.
right.
It didn't come across as too forceful. It wasn't disrespectful at all. It was just a comment,
Yeah.
just a light, simple, straightforward,
Mhm,
not too serious comment. Hey, like most real estate, there are some real estates that are not really for sale, like
mhm.
Buckingham Palace. So he,
Right.
he not just specific to Canada. Hey, like this place and that place, and you've
Like
been
another
there
place,
and
yeah.
you met the king. So
And you met
some
again.
sort of complimenting Trump too in the same breath, right?
Right, right.
I think, well, we like those people over there.
We
We
were
are
not
not
for
for
sale.
sale, ever for sale. However, right, we can do this and do that,
Yeah.
and work together and make
Hmm.
our people better. Another thing too that was would I say a bone of contention, and probably the main reason why Kanye visited first, the issue of tariffs,
Yeah.
and of course Trump is still
He's still
very
pushing it.
firm with
He's still
his
firm.
tariff policy, still pushing it,
Right.
still aluminium vehicles,
Vehicles, yeah.
automobiles, particularly automobiles. I think he was very particular about
He's very particular.
the automobiles, the car industry
Right. Hmm.
when he spoke about it, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's still a big deal. And again, it's
It's
not
still a
just
big deal.
Canada. Canada and a good number of other countries are in the same pot,
Yeah.
and everyone is looking for ways to get out. I mean, Modi visited Trump after that. He's had
He,
representatives from South Korea, from Japan. So
right.
everyone is coming to him to talk about tariffs. So it's not like it's just Canada that's
No, it's
needing
not
to go
just
talk
Canada.
about
Yeah.
it.
No.
Canada is one of many, right? And then again,
Canada's
Trump
one
is
of.
still very particular
And
about
you could tell in the meeting that Canada is just one of many.
yeah.
The way Canadians treat Americans, I don't know if they're busy doing other thing or they're just full of themselves. They don't think about Canadians that much.
No,
Like we're not in the top of their list of the things that they
because
wake
we
up
are
and
not as
worry about.
impactful in their lives as we think.
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
have impact, but it's not significant enough
It's not
that the
significant for the
common
average
American
Canadian.
goes
Yeah.
to bed and thinks about the average Canadian goes to bed and thinks about
I
tariffs.
think so. Yeah. The
But the
average Canadian.
average American does not go to bed thinking about the tariffs, the counter tariffs from Canada. It's probably the last thing
It's
they
probably
are
the
thinking
last
about
thing.
when they go to
Like
bed, right?
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if you educated Americans know that there's Canada up there, there's something that's
Yeah,
happening
that's it.
politically. If you ask them who's the Prime Minister of Canada,
They don't
the
even know.
average Canadian doesn't know. I
The
mean, the
average
average
American
American
doesn't know.
doesn't know, doesn't
Doesn't
care,
care to know. It's not like
doesn't even
why
care to
should
know.
you know? It
So
doesn't add value to their lives. So why
it
should they
doesn't
care?
add value to their life. But you ask any Canadian, even when Trump was not in office, they know what's going on in
Everybody knew
American
Trump.
politics.
Hmm.
You know, everybody knew what's. I mean, even when Biden was in office,
Right.
they knew what was going on in American politics, and most Canadians have an idea on American politics or have an opinion.
Mm.
Oh, this guy is good. This guy is better. But you ask the average American, they don't. They don't care. They don't even know. Many have not even traveled out of the country. Many they're self-sufficient. They don't care about Canada. They don't not talk less of knowing who your prime minister is. So the impact is really the forces are really skewed to one side. The
Hmm.
cards are really in the president of the United States' hand, and Canada, if they decide to choose a different route, which is what was promised on the campaign trail by both candidates, I think it's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult, but it seems like Carney is more invested in a partnership relationship with the United States, finding ways to work together in order to
Hmm.
improve that relationship. I think if we continue down the path, you obviously see a deal signed between Canada
Yeah, yeah,
and the US. You know,
yeah.
I don't. That will be not surprising to me that a deal is to come out, and they decided to have some parity in trades and tariffs and some shake, which the US will obviously parry that as a win. Obviously, they've won. The Canada has capitulated and met their demands. I don't know how Canadian Prime Minister is going to explain to the population, but you have to work with the US.
It's
Imagine going to
it would
Europe
be
and China
impossible. It would be impossible for Canada to survive without working with the US. Impossible.
without working there.
For those who
Yes.
think we can completely cut off and be
Uh,
isolated from the US, yeah, it's impractical. I don't know
it's
that
very
there's any
impractical.
practicality in that.
We we
Yes,
we sit,
yeah, I
yes,
support
yeah,
us exploring
expanding our
new
market and stuff. Yeah.
markets. It's something that we should do. But to say
Mm,
that we completely cut off
mm,
from the United
yeah,
States, our
yeah,
economies are almost
right.
really tied together.
They are married
The
together. It's
stock market
difficult to
here is
cut it out.
somewhat tied to there's a lot of
Like how many Canadians buy Canadian stocks?
because it's almost I don't want to say it's
Well, it's there, but
it's
most
there,
of the
but it's
companies are
not,
even
you
American
know,
companies. So when you're
yeah,
buying
it's
stock, you're
not,
buying into American companies
yeah,
that are
yeah,
already existing in Canada. So it's
right,
it's hard.
right,
And then you're talking about going to find dealing with people that have a different culture, a different kind of way of doing
right,
things. Maybe you might be similar with Europeans and a lot of things, but when you start going to China, they have a different mindset when it comes
yeah,
to business.
yeah,
They have a different
yeah,
mentality. They have a
yeah,
different culture. You know,
yeah,
we already have an understanding between the United States and ourselves. So why
yeah.
do you want to go on?
But again,
Yeah,
for Canada's independence and
they need to
future
diversify.
for the future of Canada, I think diversification of their market is
Yeah,
something that this prime minister needs to work on.
need
I
to
don't
start
know that
working.
he's talking about it a lot, but I
Yeah,
think that we need to diversify.
mm.
America cannot be the only place, the only market where
Where we
Canada
sell
sells. We need to
numbers.
be
Yeah,
able to go sell to China, even though the
uh,
culture and the system is different. We need to be able to sell, to do trade with India, with
yeah,
Russia, right? Of course, with the Europeans, with Africa. We need to be able to go out and
yeah.
find those markets and
To
start
find those
doing deals
markets.
and start selling products. We
Yeah.
can't rely on the United States. Every 8-10 years, we have somebody like Donald Trump who comes and threatens to cut off this and cut off that, and we start panicking. We don't need that,
Mr. Panic.
right? So diversification is pretty key. Let's listen to what Trump said about Canada's automobile industry and
Yeah.
trade with the US.
Canada. And we put tariffs on cars from Canada, and at a certain point, it won't make economic sense for Canada to build those cars. And we don't want steel from Canada because we're making our own steel, and we're having massive steel plants being built right now as we speak. We really don't want Canadian.
And then I'll also do this because it's a
Governor
continuation.
Trudeau, I think that probably didn't help his election. But when I spoke to him, I said, "So why are we taking your cars? Why are we taking your? We want to make them ourselves." I mean, I said, and if the price of your cars went up, or if we put a tariff on your cars of 25%, what would that mean to you? He said that would mean the end of Canada. He actually said that to me.
Well, I I personally think that was exaggerated. Where
They probably
people said
exaggerated. Yeah.
he
When
might have said something, but
something
I
that,
don't
yeah.
think that was what he said. And maybe Trump understood it differently. But again, I think that
Yeah,
again
yeah.
is an exaggeration on
Probably
Trump's
an
part.
exaggeration.
But again,
That's
Trump
not.
is right. Trump is right.
Yeah.
You know, they can produce steel.
They
So
can,
they really don't need Canadian steel.
and he's not. He's saying it in front of the Prime Minister
In
of
front of
Canada.
you, in
He's
front
not,
of you. He wasn't hiding it.
he's not saying it at some press conference or in some close meeting or with some collaborators or with some rival market. He's saying it in front of you. We don't need your cars. We don't need your aluminum. We don't need your steel. In front of you. That tells you, if you just listening to a conversation for the first time, it tells you who has the power, who has the cards in this relationship, you know. And he's more focused on Americans. But I think, like we said, the relationship between Canada and America is so intertwined.
Mhm.
We have different power systems, um, different hierarchy in that relationship, but we are really married together. And
Mhm.
if we're trying to play tough, it's going to affect the US in the short term too, but it's going to have a bigger impact on Canadians too in the short term before we can find any other markets to start
I
to
think the US can adapt and adjust to
way
the
faster
lack
than Canada
of
can.
Canadian imports.
Yeah,
They can survive it. It's not
yeah,
going to be the end of the United States
yeah. They're going to
if Canada.
struggle, but it's not going to.
Of course, they
Yeah,
will struggle. I'm not.
the average American, yeah, he doesn't care. He finds something else to do. But Canadians are going to feel it in terms of jobs, in terms of the economy, in terms of inflation, in terms of opportunities for
Mhm.
the country in general. It's gonna be very difficult. It's not something that I want to see happen because I know that we benefit from this relation. There's a mutual benefit from this relationship, but more on the Canadian end than there is on the American end. So we are better together than we are separated.
Yeah, you're right. We do depend on each other, but the degree of dependency
Right, it varies.
varies between us and them. We are a lot more dependent on the United States than they are dependent on us. But again, we
Right.
need each other. I think that
And
that's
I'm sure
important.
you've traveled to the US. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've traveled to the US multiple times. You can do, where are you from? I'm from Canada. Oh, okay. Yeah, that cold place up there in the north, living in the rock. Like the Americans' idea of Canada is just like it's some cold land that is, houses are sparse among each other, snow falls 24/7. You know, the few that are well traveled, you can talk about
Mhm.
Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal. Not a lot of people know Calgary, where we come from.
No,
Not a lot of
they
people
know the
know
big
places
cities. Yeah.
like Manitoba and Saskatchewan, and yeah. If you want to talk the Americans who are well traveled, and these are the ones who are well traveled:
They
Vancouver,
still don't know a lot about us.
Montreal,
Yeah.
Toronto. That's it. That's it. The rest, they can't really name another city in Canada.
Yeah.
No.
So the tariffs story continues, and
Yeah.
I remember a few months ago when Trump was talking about tariffs. We did talk a little about why these tariffs were relevant or necessary
Mhm.
for the United States. Trump had mentioned, or we had talked about Trump using tariffs to bring back investments and manufacturing and businesses back to the
Yeah.
U.S. Because, like he's always said, when Biden was in office, most companies manufacturing in the U.S. they were moving out,
They're moving on.
moving out to cheaper markets, moving out where there was a lot of labor, moving out where the countries with less taxes, right? So pulling out business and investment from the United States.
Yeah.
Um, but in the next clip that we're going to watch, you would hear Trump talk about how much money he has been able to bring back, how much investment he has been able to bring back to the United States just because of the impacts of the tariffs, right?
Right.
If you're producing something in Thailand, for example, and they are tariffing you 54% or something on whatever it is that you're producing, and you realize America is probably my biggest market. If I
Right.
really can't sell to the US, where else do I go? Because even though we have other markets, again, they are not as sophisticated and they
They're
are not
not
as
consumer
sophisticated
markets like the
really
US's.
consumer markets like the USA and high end consumer goods, right? So
Yeah.
if you are a manufacturer like that, what choice do you have other than to move some of your production back to the United States, right? And I
Right.
think we were right when we talked about this as an economic strategy that most people did not get.
Right. Most
Most
people
people
don't
did
get
not
most.
understand at that time what Trump was trying to do. But I would say that, yeah, we kind of figured out,
Yeah, yeah.
played it
All
cool.
the all the smart economists, the people with the PhDs and
Yes,
professorships in
right,
universities were
right.
talking about how dumb this was, how it cannot be achieved, how the world is so dependent on China and America is gonna collapse in a day should this continue. Um, and there's a little bit of truth to that, but then it's proven that America is still surviving. Trump said ships are turning back to China. I don't know how
Yeah.
true that is, but it sounds like ships are not
Again,
being
maybe
able to.
again, again with Trump, there's always a little bit of truth.
There's a
Ships
little
might
bit of
not be
truth, yeah.
turning out, but maybe the volume of trade has
It's
reduced
not the same,
substantially, right? Which
right?
technically, which if you're speaking in language like Trump, again, it would kind of mean
Right.
like things are turning back and they're just
Yeah.
right. So yeah, let's listen to
Yeah.
that comment.
More importantly, massive numbers of companies are moving into the United States. Honda, we have tremendous, the car companies are moving in at levels we've never seen before. The biggest investment ever made in the United States is being made right now. Trillions of dollars. I would say we could be at $9 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see how much money? 9 trillion.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of money, and these
That's a
are
lot of money.
companies bringing back investment to the US. This would
Yeah.
probably not have happened without the tariffs.
No.
Not
No.
have happened without the
Yeah.
tariffs. So, you know, you might call Trump whatever you want, give him
You
whatever name you want to give him.
he is very transformational in terms of
He's
person.
getting
He
things
has
done.
changed the status quo, changed how we see things. So it turns out all these things that we used to think is international trade. There's a lot of policies. There's a lot of international law that you have to. It turns out you just need a new president to be able to just say no. This is how we're doing things, and then people will adapt. Suddenly, the US has become a ground for a lot of manufacturing jobs. What people used to consider low-paying jobs now is
Hmm.
coming back there,
Hmm.
and it's going to be happening in the US, so that you have more made in the US than them importing from China. Suddenly, China might be, I don't know, but I think at some point they will have to make a deal. So they'll have to come to the table and discuss this tariff issue because let's not kid ourselves. The U.S. is one of the main consumers of Chinese products. Like, I mean, Canada is back there too, but the U.S. is allowed. Just go to your house and look for anything made in Canada or look for anything made in U.S. Like everything we are using now, talk of this iPhone I'm using to talk to you, or the microphones, or the laptop, just look at the back of them, or the spoons that you ate with, or the toilet roll, or the papers, or the sheets and whatever. They're all made in China. And I was trying to look for anything that was made in Canada or USA among myself. Nothing. Like literally nothing.
There's not
Everything
a
that
lot made here. Even if it was finally made here, it is mostly assembled.
is mostly assembled
It's product with parts from Thailand, parts from the United States,
right,
parts from
from
China
everywhere.
or India, and it's just coupled and put up together here.
Right.
And even when we talk about the automobiles, the cars that Canada ships, we don't like you. It's not 100% made in Canada.
Yeah. You.
More than 50% of those
Right.
parts that we use in Canadian cars come from the United States
Right.
or Mexico, right? So
Yeah.
it's never purely 100%
It's
made in
never purely
Canada. It's
hard. Yeah.
always a combination of different states, right?
Right. Yeah.
Pulling parts here and there, assembling chips from
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 other side.
um, from different parts of from Asia and other parts of the world to make things happen. So America, yeah, you could. I mean, they have a few, but again, still, they are still assembling stuff. They are
The
still
sea
pulling
assembly
parts,
stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
still pulling parts from everywhere else,
Yeah.
to make things. Even
I mean,
China, even we talk about China, things are
they,
hardly ever 100% Chinese.
yeah. Yeah.
There's hardly ever 100% Chinese. The fridges we use, the television chips are coming from South Korea. Chips are coming from
Yeah. From everywhere. Yeah.
not Thailand, but yeah, they're coming from everywhere. So
Right.
there's bits and pieces and portions
Right.
pulled out
Right.
from everywhere, assembled and made in China, and then sent back to the world,
Mhm.
right? So it's tricky when we look at that.
The, the
Um,
the 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 effects of capitalism.
It's
No,
capitalism.
it forces people that don't even like each other to
It's
be able to,
globalization too, right?
yeah, to be able to
Forcing
work
people
together
to,
to
yeah,
produce a
yeah,
single product.
yeah.
Some professor said it beautifully. Like if you have a piece of pencil, you don't know who made the cover, you don't know who made the leg, you don't know,
Right.
but you don't care. As you go
Mhm.
and you pay maybe it's 1 cent or 25 cents to buy
You
that
go.
pencil, you are supporting someone in some country that probably has a god that you don't worship or you don't care about, probably
That's
has
business.
a culture that you don't care about that may even killed you for the way you think or the way you look
Mhm.
and stuff like that.
Right.
But you don't care. But because of the free market, you're able to support that person because they have exchanged their time and you're giving them money for the time that they exchange to put that single person together. Now expand that to a box, to a
Everything
car,
else.
to a
Right.
house, to everything.
Right.
So
Right.
capitalism in some way brings a lot of unity to the world.
Unintentionally. Is it
Unintentionally.
unintended?
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say
yeah.
unintended
People
because it
people who don't
promotes.
like each other can still
Yeah,
cooperate. Yeah.
yeah, they can. So I'll find our video, I'll play it, and then we'll comment. Tell me
Right.
how you feel about this.
Yeah.
Concession you want out of Canada?
Concession?
Yes,
Friendship.
but that's not a concession.
No, we're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place.
So you're sitting there, and he's talked about us being the 51st state. He is charging us with tariffs of 25% here, 10% there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's telling us how he doesn't need us. He doesn't need our cars. They can make their cars. He doesn't need our energy
America.
because they can make their energy. And then he turns around at the end of the day and say, "Ah, we are going to be friends."
We're gonna
Are
be
we
friends.
going to be friends? Are we friends with the United States?
Yeah. Yeah. He's yeah. Trump is trying to squeeze as much as he can for his people. And my only wish is that Canadians and Canadian leaders should be able to do that for their country. They should be able to work out a deal that also supports Canadians. Um, I would like to see where a trade deal is settled and both countries benefit without it being one-sided. But in Trump's terms, we can still have a 25% tariff and still be friends. I mean, it's going to hurt a lot of Canadian jobs. It's going to hurt a lot of Canadian market. But like we've discussed, Canada has to find new ways to diversify its market. That's the only way that they can survive, which is really challenging considering the climate, considering the population, considering the lack of manufacturing too. That's not there in Canada. I don't know if we can be friends, but to be honest, the relationship is changing. I don't know. In my opinion, a lot of Canadians are becoming more Americans. Americans still don't care. So it is what it is. Hopefully, we can find a leader in mechanic. He can take Canada to a different market. I don't say it, but that's what I was voted for. But we'll see.
In my opinion, and based on conversations that I've had with some of the people here that I know, it's obvious that the relationship Canada had with the United States 10 years ago is not the same relationship
Yeah, it's not
they
the
are
same. Yeah,
going to have now. It's not relationship. It is not the same relationship they are going to have with Donald Trump in office.
right.
The relationship has deteriorated significantly.
Yes, yeah.
There is no trust. Canadians don't trust the
We don't
United
trust
States
Americans.
government. They don't trust Trump.
Yeah,
It feels like we are a junior partner in whatever relationship that we had now. That is what it feels like. It feels like the
hmm
boss telling the client or the employee
remember
what
what
I
to do.
want to see happen, what needs to happen. There are lots of Canadians who have adjusted their travel plans.
Yeah,
Those who had
yeah.
made plans to travel to the United States are not going in
Right.
opposition, right? In opposition to Trump, just to prove a point.
hmm
A lot of them are not going. There are a lot of Canadians now who are buying
Yeah, in
local.
Canada. Yeah,
They are
yeah.
buying local
hmm
again in defiance of Trump, in defiance of the United States, and
Yeah.
somewhat shaping the relationship that we are going to have moving forward.
hmm Yeah.
Just like Carney said, the relationship we had with the United States 2, 3, 4 years
Different.
ago,
It's different. Yeah.
it's not the same relationship.
It's
It's
not the
going to be
same. Yeah.
different. And usually when relationships deteriorate and fall apart, maybe with time we could build some trust. There could be a
Yeah.
build back of that
Right.
relationship,
Right.
but it is never going to be the same. It is never going to be the same.
It will not be the same. Yeah.
The relationship we see now, I think it's kind of an abusive relationship. When you talk to most Canadians, that's how they see it.
They feel abuse.
They
They feel
feel like
used.
it's an abusive relationship, it's a controlling relationship
Mhm.
where Donald Trump is the dominant partner, and
Right.
nothing that we say and do
Mhm.
can change anything. We see
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
right? We see that. And again, I think that is why Carney was voted into office.
Yeah.
It's in defiance of that.
All of that. Yeah. Yeah.
All in defiance of that.
All
So
of that.
in as much as I know that, you know, we cannot be enemies because we both
Right.
cannot afford to be enemies with the United States,
Mhm.
but we are not
Friendship is
best
different.
best of friends.
Right. Yeah.
We are not best of friends.
And in a way too, it might benefit Canada. Like you say, a lot of people are now consuming local. So we talked a little bit about the interprovincial trade barriers that might help now provinces to trade. So I'm generally an optimistic person. I see that this can be a good opportunity for Canada to trade within itself, Canada to find different markets and stuff like that. But you're very right. The trust is different. Canadians feel cheated, feel a lesser partner, and I don't know how get. I don't see Carney riding this till the next U.S. president comes around. Um, um, Americans, I don't know if now Trump's numbers are beginning to go down a little bit because the stock market has been going
Has been
down
down for a while, right?
for a while.
It's
So
not recovered.
it's not recovered. I'm thinking if it continues to go down, Americans might change their mind about Trump, and because they're very impatient too, they might change their mind about Trump. And you know, for Trump, his legacy is very important to him. He wants to live on a high note, and if Americans
But
change their
again,
mind,
he too needs to
he's not
understand
speaking
that
for.
he cannot afford the Democrats in 2 years
To win the
taking the
House.
majority and taking the House.
Right. Yeah.
Then
That's
he
just
will
where I was
just
going with that point. Yeah.
that I
If
think that's where you were heading to, yeah.
yeah. If the numbers are not doing good, then the Democrats might have an upper hand to win back the House in 2 years. So,
And they will shut him
Trump,
down. So he would
and they
be
shut him
a
down.
lame
So,
duck president for 2 years,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
is probably
Exactly.
something that he doesn't want. And so
Which is something that he doesn't
he
want. So
needs to
he
change
has to
his
start
ways.
announcing
Right,
deals and making
right,
statements about deals and tariffs. Let
right.
us know your decision so that the market can stabilize and people can feel more secure about their money and the stock market. Because if he keeps dragging this thing too long and then leaves the market in a limbo, it's not good for him politically, like you said. The Democrats might have an upper hand in the House. So I think, if you ask me, I think Trump should start making announcements soon. At latest, this end of this month, next month, he should start saying, okay, these are the countries that have made deals. This is what we're doing, so that people should not be in limbo. Today tariff, tomorrow no tariff. Today 25%, tomorrow 10%, whatever. What is it? The market needs
Bipolar,
stabilization and they need clearance, right?
bipolar
So
Trump.
yeah, I mean, I like the way he's doing the tariffs, but at some point, people need to be reassured that there's something concrete that's happening and something good has come out of this, so that they might feel secure and they might have more confidence giving the Republicans the House in 2 years again.
Because it can only be a strategy if you put a
If you see
strategy
results,
and there's an end date and there's results. It
and the
cannot just
results,
be
yeah,
tariffs, 154% tariffs for China in perpetuity,
yeah,
or a 25% tariff for Canadian steel or aluminium in
yeah,
perpetuity, right?
yeah.
Then that is not a strategy.
That's
To
not good.
call it a strategy, we have to see some sort of a deadline, a timeline,
The
and
timeline.
that will be determined by seeing results, right?
I've seen
What
results.
deals are we signing? Which countries are we signing deals with,
Yeah. Have they
right? And
reduced their tariffs? Have we
did they
reduced our
reduce their
tariffs?
tariffs? Are we seeing a little bit of fairness in the trade? Is there some
Right.
sort of a balance? We people need to see that. Without that, Trump, his popularity might begin to decline in the next
It might
couple of
begin
weeks,
to decline.
the next
Yeah.
couple
If
of
it's,
months. That's for sure.
yeah, that's for sure.
And
It's
then
very
the
this doesn't
Republican
go
Party
well.
will be in trouble
In
come
trouble again.
2020,
26, 27.
2026, 27.
Yeah. When I go back to the polls to
when they
vote,
go back to the
yeah,
polls. Okay.
yeah.
Final comment. Was you think was Carney successful? Was this success, failure?
Yeah.
Was he a subordinate? Was he forceful enough? What are your opinions in conclusion?
I wouldn't say failure. I think he was tactful.
Mm-hmm.
He was diplomatic. Um, first of all, the media did not give him a lot of opportunities. A lot of the questions were directed to Trump. Once in a while,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they asked him a question.
Mm-hmm.
So
Which might have been good for Carney, because I felt like the more he spoke, there was a possibility of maybe a slip off,
I think right,
some misunderstanding. So the less he spoke, I felt like it was better for him. You
right,
speak,
right.
So anyway, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, so yeah, I think he did well. Again, he changed from his campaign message and tactics, and he was more coordinated, more calculated, more diplomatic, and he achieved his goal. He got his point. He made sure he said that Canada was not for sale. I think that was a mistake in the minds of a lot of Canadians, and they'll carry that and run with it. You'll be all over the news. See, the guy stood up for you guys. But in my opinion, Tron hasn't budged yet. He's still on
Mm-hmm.
the same. He still
Mm-hmm.
kind of throw the 51st straight. He
Mm-hmm.
still said, we didn't get a question, but the journalist asked, did anything can he do change your mind? He said, no,
No,
that's
nothing.
just the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still there.
So maybe to an extent is saying this meeting was pointless. Even before the
Even
meeting,
before,
he made a
yeah,
statement like, "I don't know why he's coming to see me." I remember him saying something like that. Like he
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
understand why Carney is coming to see him, but again, he's going to receive him anyway,
You
right?
guys,
And then now saying, well, there's nothing that he can do or say that would change
we'll stop the tariff.
the direction in which we are going with Canada, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
what was the point of the meeting? But again,
what's the
there
plan?
definitely was a point of the meeting.
Yeah, yeah,
It's better when people are talking
right.
than when they are not talking, when they are isolated. It's better
Yeah.
when people are talking. I read somewhere, again, this is just an aside. I read somewhere in the media that Pierre Poliev had reached out to Doug Ford. And I'm
Oh,
like, too little, too late.
too late, too
Too
late.
little, too late. Like, why now?
Why now?
Why now? You should have done that. So again, like I said, it's better when people are talking than
Right.
when they are not.
Yeah.
Laurent LC left a comment, which I agree. Carney is a good politician who knows diplomacy and knows how to use the right verbs. Let's wait and see what the future holds for us.
Right.
I think we just keep our fingers crossed.
Carney will not consider himself a politician. He considers himself an
No,
outsider,
he's
just
a
like Trump.
politician. He can deny it all he wants.
I know.
He is a
So,
politician.
so yeah, yeah, that's my thought. I hope they can strike a deal. My understanding was this was just preliminary meetings before they sit down and hash things out. So hopefully things can come out that will be mutually beneficial.
Perfect. Well, I mean, for me, it's short and simple. I believe this was, high level diplomacy. This demonstrated a certain level of skill for
Right.
McCartney. Again, he did not change anything,
Hmm.
but I don't think he made it worse,
Yeah.
because it's bad if you go and come back and create a situation where things become worse for Canadians. I
Right.
think if the status quo remains after this visit, I would say it's a success.
Yeah.
I would say it's a success, right? And I think that is where we conclude.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are definitely going to be, watching Carney as he governs Canada,
Yeah.
and monitoring and observing the relationship he has with Trump, and the relationship Canada and the United States build as we move forward, right? Again, like
Yes.
Laura LC says, we keep our fingers crossed, and of course, as Canadian, we hope for the best, because things are tough.
Things are
Things are really
tough.
tough.
Things
So
are tough.
we are hoping for the best, and hopefully Makani, not necessarily my guy in terms of who I wanted to see
Me too.
lead the country, but again, he is prime minister, and we are definitely
We're wishing the best.
wishing him the best.